Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a statement, a weapon. The final word of someone who has seen through it all and no longer needs to explain. Welcome back to the channel, where we don't just talk about pain, but uncover the way out, the awakening, and the inner strength to move forward with clarity and courage. In today's video, you'll discover why silence leaves the narcissist so deeply unsettled. Not because you're playing a game of psychological warfare, but because you're reclaiming control over your own life. Don't look away, because every moment ahead could be the turning point that helps you step out of the cycle of manipulation peacefully and powerfully. If you see yourself in this story, or know someone trying to escape a toxic relationship, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us on this healing journey. Every like, share, and comment you leave doesn't just empower you. It spreads light to the hearts, still searching for a glimmer of hope. There are battles that don't need guns, yet still ravage the soul. And in a relationship with a narcissist, that's exactly what happens every single day. They don't strike with fists, but with subtle blame, emotional manipulation, and feigned hurt that makes you question your own reality. You don't fall because you're pushed. You collapse because you've been drained over and over again by half-truths, fabricated crises, and the responsibility of constantly cleaning up the messes they cause. And when you go silent, they panic. When you stop reacting the way they expect, no rage, no explanations, no begging, they lose their bearings. Because all this time they've fed off your reactions to feel powerful. Like an actor on stage with no audience, they don't know how to continue the performance once your eyes have left the stage. Silence, in this case, is not avoidance. It's a declaration: I'm no longer playing this game. You may have once felt obligated to explain every action, to shoulder responsibilities that weren't yours, to miss out on opportunities because you were caught in someone else's chaos. But the moment you choose silence, you begin to rewrite the rules. You don't owe them your commentary. You don't owe them an apology. You don't owe them access to what's going on inside you. Ironically, it's in your silence that you finally get heard. Not because they've awakened, but because the fear of losing control forces them to ask themselves, why isn't he reacting anymore? And that very question becomes the first crack in the wall of illusion they've built around themselves. You don't need to scream to reclaim your dignity. You simply need to stop reacting, stop explaining, stop compromising, because every word you've ever spoken to them has been twisted, distorted, and used against you. But your silence cannot be weaponized. It is the purest truth you can offer them. And don't mistake this for a game of silent treatment. No. You are healing in stillness. You are learning to guard your peace like a sacred treasure. They may call you cold, unfeeling, but that's just how they respond when they realize they can no longer control you. In this journey, the most important thing isn't getting them to understand. It's getting yourself to understand that you no longer belong in that place. You are not selfish for walking away from a relationship that leaves you drained. You are brave, because in a world that never stops shouting, silence is an act of strength. It is the quiet voice of a soul saving itself. And then something strange happens. As you withdraw your energy, not with rage, not with arguments, but with calm, conscious silence, they begin to feel abandoned in the very void they created. Narcissists are used to pulling emotional strings like a puppeteer, but when you go silent, there are no strings left to pull, and they spiral. Not because they love you, but because they've lost a source, a dumping ground for their emotions, a mirror to reflect their distorted ego, a supporting role in a play where they demand center stage. Maybe you once thought your silence would hurt them, would make them change. But no. The only thing your silence truly creates is disorientation in their manipulative system. They no longer know what you're thinking, planning, or feeling. And that uncertainty, that void, is their greatest fear. Because narcissists cannot read silence. They can only read panic, anger, pleading, and tears. Those are emotions they know how to exploit. But when you step off the emotional stage and refuse to perform, the show ends. No audience, no spotlight, no control. They may go seek another supply, yes. But you have found something far more valuable, peace. And don't get it twisted, this isn't running away. This is the restoration of inner sovereignty. A courageous choice to no longer react unconsciously, to no longer let yourself be led by someone else's emotions. It's that pivotal moment when you sit down, look within, and say, I don't need to explain myself anymore. I don't need to prove anything to someone who never truly listened. And when you reach that point, silence is no longer a tactic. It becomes a way of being. A new energy, untouchable, unmanipulated, and no longer distorted by those who fail to recognize your worth. In this video, I don't just want you to understand this intellectually. I want you to feel it through your own experience, through your intuition, through the empathy of those who've stood where you are. Because silence is not the end. It's the gateway to freedom. When you stop replying to messages, when you stop explaining, when you stop waiting for an apology that will never come, that's when your life begins again without the narcissist at the center. You may find yourself torn between the logic that tells you to let go and the heart that still holds on. Maybe you've deleted and rewritten messages 100 times. Maybe you've stood at the door of goodbye and couldn't bring yourself to knock one last time. You're not weak. You're just yearning for one thing the narcissist could never truly give you: the confirmation that you are worthy of being loved in a healthy way. But today, you'll give that to yourself through intentional silence. Not the silence of the wounded, but the silence of the awakened. You no longer need them to understand you. You no longer need one last clarifying conversation or a graceful ending. Because you've seen enough. You've endured enough. And the most miraculous realization is this: you no longer care to win a war that was never fair to begin with. The narcissist may call you avoidant, immature, or claim you've been negatively influenced by others. They may spin narratives about who you are, but none of it matters because you've left the game. And you know what? In that silence, something miraculous happens. You begin to hear your own true voice. The voice that was drowned out by shouting, by criticism, by the obsession with being loved. It's the quiet whisper that finally tells you, I deserve more than this. And as you begin to care for yourself in the smallest ways, like eating properly, getting enough sleep, saying no without guilt, you are rebuilding a version of yourself that is peaceful, sovereign, and whole. Every day you don't respond, don't explain, don't defend, is a day you rewire your nervous system and break free from the deeply ingrained pattern of reactivity. Silence, in the end, is not about punishing them. It's about protecting yourself. You're no longer living to be understood by someone else. You're living to understand yourself. And when you truly understand yourself, you will never again accept a relationship that strips away your dignity. So keep choosing silence. Let them be confused. Let them write their stories. But you choose better. Choose life. Choose freedom. Choose to love yourself deeply and honestly. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to sob to prove your pain. And you certainly don't need to drain your soul in hopes of earning a glance of sympathy from someone who once promised to love you forever, yet never learned how to truly respect you. Because the truth is this: the narcissist didn't love you. They loved the power you gave them. They loved the dependence in your eyes, the desperation in your voice, the panic in your silence. But once you no longer need them, not because you found someone else, but because you finally chose yourself, the curtain falls and the show ends. You are not their ex. You are the one they were never mature enough to keep. And from the moment you went silent, no texts, no calls, no falling into their calculated apologies, no longer feeling guilty for saying I need space. You did what they never thought you had the courage to do. You began living without them. Do you know why they're confused? Because you were the one who gave unconditionally. the one who sacrificed, forgave, and tried to keep everything together. But that person no longer exists. There's no one left to control, to guilt trip, to play the victim for. All that remains is them and the empty space where truth echoes a truth they've always run from. They once believed you'd never leave, that you would always be there ready to forgive every lie. But you've changed not through anger, but through the quiet power of letting go. And that is what truly breaks them. And when you walk away from the relationship in silence, not to get attention, but to protect the part of yourself that was fading, you begin to see the truth that you were once too overwhelmed to face. You were never the problem. You were the only one who saw the problem and dared to ask questions. And for that, you were punished. You were labeled too sensitive, irrational, unsympathetic, demanding. But the truth, you simply loved deeply and wanted to be loved with the same sincerity in return. They didn't. They only wanted to keep you in a state they could control, loving, but anxious, attached, but guilt-ridden, present, but never enough. And now in your silence, you are no longer an emotionally programmable puppet. You are a real, awakened human being who has learned not every relationship is worth saving. Sometimes the best thing you can do is not to fix it, but to walk away so you can remain whole. Silence is no longer a tactic. It is a boundary, a soft but unshakable fortress that prevents you from returning to the very place where you once lost your self-respect. Maybe you once thought the narcissist would change if they lost you, but in truth, the one who changed was you. You no longer melt at a midnight message. You no longer wait for an apology just to breathe again. You no longer use beautiful memories as excuses to forgive current harm. You have seen them clearly, not with bitterness, but with calm awareness. And when truth is seen without the need for justification, it becomes freedom. You don't need them to understand. You need yourself to understand that you are worthy. That peace is not a reward. It is a basic human right. Look back on the road you've traveled not with sadness, but with deep respect for yourself. Because to reach this moment of silence, you had to endure countless insults while pretending to smile. Sleepless nights over a seen message left unanswered. So many times you tried to fix yourself in a game where they made all the rules. You're not there anymore. And that is your victory. A victory that needs no applause, no recognition, no acceptance speech. A quiet, resounding triumph within because you have walked out of a distorted world, out of a toxic emotional trance, and stepped into a new life where you are the center, not them. They may find someone new, post happy pictures, pretend nothing happened. But you know the truth. Only one person truly changed, and that person is you. No longer do you reflexively fall into their familiar traps every time they put on an act. No longer do you feel the need to fix things whenever they're disappointed. No longer do you long for an apology from someone who never even knew what remorse meant. Silence, for you now, is not avoidance. It is a declaration of maturity. You are teaching the world I will not remain in a place that forces me to lose myself, and that in a society that glorifies endurance is a revolutionary act. And if you're still wondering, why does it still hurt? Am I really strong? Please remember this. Strength is not the absence of pain. Strength is knowing exactly where it hurts, why it hurts, and still choosing to move forward without the hand of the one who hurt you. In the end, your silence is not the conclusion. It is the beginning of a new chapter 1, where you are no longer controlled by someone else's emotions, no longer trapped in cycles of manipulation disguised as love. It is a chapter where you live in rhythm with your own heart, calm, free, and whole. You once believed you needed them to feel loved, but now you understand real love doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't cause you to question your worth. And it certainly doesn't require you to trade your self-respect just to stay. When you choose silence, you are choosing yourself. And that is not selfish. It is courage. There may still be days when your heart feels heavy remembering what happened. There may still be nights when an old dream wakes you up. Don't blame yourself for that. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you once loved with sincerity. But today, you are no longer that person. You are no longer the one waiting for a message until exhaustion. No longer the one digging through your own soul, trying to find flaws in yourself just because they refuse to take responsibility. No longer the one who sacrificed everything for someone who never truly sacrificed anything. You are someone who knows. Silence is not emptiness. It is the space where your soul finally gets to breathe. If you've stayed with me until now, I believe you are on the journey back to yourself, and I want to invite you to continue walking alongside this community. A place where you are not judged for loving the wrong person. A place where you are heard, encouraged, and inspired to live fully as the most beautiful version of yourself. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications and share this video if it spoke to something deep inside you. Don't forget to leave a comment, even just a single line, to let someone else know they are not alone in this healing journey. Because here we don't just talk about pain. We talk about the door that opens after the pain. And if you are sitting in silence right now, please know this. It is not emptiness. It is the loudest voice of someone who is learning to love themselves, not loudly, but steadfastly.